podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
How you doing, Ed?
That's a bit Alan Partridge, actually. I not almost said Alan Pardew there, but no.
Well, it's kind of true. They are essentially the same person.
They have morphed into one, haven't they?
Yeah.
I'm doing very good, thank you. Very, very good. Much better after yesterday's result. A fine performance from United there, I thought. Just top quality in possession and control, which Van Gaal will have liked. He talked about that a lot after the Arsenal game. Very Van Gaal moment after the Arsenal game where he spent about 5 minutes talking about possession stats and pass completion rates and stuff like that. And we were like, mate, you've just been tanked 3-0. But much better after Everton, United winning 3-0. And just probably the finest performance of the United season so far.
Yeah, since we've last talked about Manchester United in a forum that is recorded, United have given their worst and best performances of the season and have an aggregate score of 3-3.
Yeah, right. And in fact, you could make the same sort of comparison with Van Gaal. I thought everything he tried against Everton paid off, didn't it? Mm-hmm. And even the substitutions. And against Arsenal, probably his worst moment as a United manager. Just nothing quite went right. And he made some very poor decisions.
He did, and I guess let's just briefly touch upon this. Everyone's given their 2 pence worth, but we'll just chuck in ours. Why not? I mean, it's the same stuff that everyone said, really. The combination of Carrick and Schweinsteiger set up to press against Arsenal was bizarre. Rooney didn't do his pressing job properly, leaving an enormous amount of space. Schweinsteiger kind of just lost all discipline. And instead of sitting back deep and hitting Arsenal on the break, United just left a load of space in behind, and Arsenal shredded them. And a couple of pretty bad individual performances too. Some not surprising, and some like Matteo Darmian a little more surprising.
Yeah, fair summary, I think. The odd thing, I mean, a few people pointed out after the game, Schweinsteiger's age, and I think there was some commentary about how he's, on the downslope. I thought that was a little unfair. Because he was majestic against Everton, so let's come to that in a bit. But the really odd thing was this positioning of Schweinsteiger up the pitch. Did he lose all discipline, or was that the role he was asked to play? It's not quite clear, is it? But really, really high up the pitch, trying to win the ball in the final third. It was the Gegenpressen of Borussia Dortmund and now Liverpool.
It was, but you just don't Gegenpress Arsenal, do you? There's just no need. You just let them do their thing in front of you, and then basically the way you play against Arsenal is the way you're supposed to play against us.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way you play against Arsenal was set when Phil and Gary Neville kicked Antonio Reyes all over Old Trafford, right? You kick them all over the place, you let them have the ball, then you beat them up a little bit in midfield and you hit them on the break. And it works every single time. And United got that completely wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were unable to do anything in an attacking sense when they were dominant in possession. The only person that came out of that game with any credit for United, Anthony Martial. But you think that could have been a lot different if Arsenal hadn't had Petr Cech in goal, who did very well to save Martial's save at the end there. And that's, I guess you could count that towards the points total that Czech's supposed to earn them this season. Because I think if United had scored right on the stroke of half-time and now it's 3-1, everything starts to look a bit different, and Arsenal are famously flaky, aren't they? So, but yeah, anyway, that was horrible, as Van Gaal said in his pre-match and post-match press conferences. He used the word horrible. He really had been stewing on that defeat, you could tell. Said they had at least 15 meetings in the week following that defeat.
I'm sure that went down with the playing staff. Well, with the playing staff.
Well, it looked like it did, didn't it? Because they were absolutely fantastic against Everton. What a performance.
Right from the go, right? And, United started extremely slowly at the Emirates, didn't they? And conversely, Arsenal extremely fast. But the other way around, at Goodison Park, United were at it straight away. But it all just made so much difference, the selection. 10 out of 11. felt about right. So Smalling and Jones in the centre of the park. Darmian restored to right back. Marcos Rojo came in at left back, so balance in the back four there. It was hard to... I have to say, I was looking at I kind of guessed the back four beforehand. I mean, there weren't too many other options, were they? But it's hard to say what order they would turn up in. So, in the right order, I think. And then in midfield, energy with Schneiderlin, who was fantastic at Everton, really, really good. I think his stock grew by not playing at Arsenal, of course. Supported by Carrick. It's the right balance. I don't think we can have Carrick and Schweinsteiger in the same side. And Ander Herrera, who not only was magnificent on the day, just adds zip both to United's sort of all-round game because he's got tons of energy, but just the passing, he moves the ball so much quicker. So a nicely balanced side. United came right out of the blocks and were great from there onwards.
Yeah, and I think the midfield balance of playing Schweinsteiger and Schneiderlin with Herrera in front of them, and then you have the either-or thing with Schweinsteiger and Carrick. But with Herrera, you have more options, really, because there's running in there either way. And he was just absolutely superb, wasn't he? It's brilliant when a player that you've been crying out for to get into the team turns up in the team, scores a goal, gets an assist, and just puts on an all-round man-of-the-match performance.
Yeah. He's not a natural number 10, right? He's not someone who really dictates the pace and tempo of a game. He's not a classic European number 10, really. But he had a great performance, all-round, I suppose, a modern number 10 performance. Got the ball, moved it quickly, plenty of energy, scored a fine goal. And everything you wanted from him. The only disappointing thing, I suppose, about United yesterday was that Martial, who's been absolutely fantastic at number 9 since he came to the club, whether he scores or not, I suppose he's on a bit of a goal drought at the moment, isn't he? Sort of 4 or 5 games without a goal, was shifted out to the left, where he did fine, but was literally marginalised when he's United's best attacking player. And if we could just find a slightly different balance there with Martial at number 9 and getting Herrera in the side. I don't know what you'd have to do to make that happen, Paul. Maybe you got some ideas. Then I think United would be even better.
No, I can't think of any. Yeah, Martial struggled just before the Herrera goal. He turned his ankle in a tackle. I wasn't really able to celebrate the Herrera goal until after he saw Martial up and walking around, because it was like, no, this is too great a price to pay to go 2-0 up at Goodison Park. But and I think he looked a bit heavy on that leg for the rest of that half, and I wasn't expecting to see him in the second half, but he did come out and he was much, much better in the second half, and he completed 10 successful take-ons in that game. That is a big number.
It's a really big number. Has Rooney completed 10 successful take-ons this season? No, definitely haven't. I don't need to look at that. He definitely hasn't. But
Seamus Coleman is just woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, looking around for Anthony Martial because he was not having fun against him, and he was really unlucky not to end up with a goal or an assist late in that second half because he was just on fire. And playing Martial wide left, I don't think is bad. He was man of the match there for France against Denmark during the international break. So long as he's cutting inside a lot, and so long as there's a number 9 in front of him creating some space, I think that could be extremely dangerous. But
it could be, yeah. I mean, I always like to play players in the position they can cause the most damage, and I think right now up front is the best role for him. He can certainly play wide left. I mean, as long as typically away from home, he'd be having to do a lot more defending than he did yesterday. And so he was effectively playing as an inside left, but that wouldn't be the case in a lot of games where he'd be tracking back all the time. So I'm not sure that's how you necessarily get the best out of him. He can definitely play there, of course. He's going to play like a forward there rather than a midfielder. But the problem is, as you mentioned, that number 9 creating space. And we said before we started recording that we wouldn't spend too much time talking about our number 9 stroke number 10. But that was one of the worst halves of football I'd ever seen from any footballer. I suggested that there was a new drinking game. Anytime the ball bounced off Rooney's shins when he was trying to control it, you should take a drink. And there are literally 50 people replying to me saying, "You'd be pissed before half-time, mate."
Yeah, he didn't play well. He did score, which is fantastic. His first goal at Goodison since 2007, his first goal away from home in the league for 11 months. And he did take his goal quite well, although not wishing to be mean, Tim Howard really should have done better. He really should have stayed on his feet a bit longer. Maybe Rooney sold him or something with the eyes. But but his all-round play was pretty poor.
Well, the thing with Howard is he has a reputation for that. Remember the discussion during the last World Cup about Howard lying down for goals. So there you go. So maybe Rooney knew that and just lifted it over. But Howard basically lay down on the ground and said, "Please chip me."
Yeah, and Rooney will always love to do that. He did. There was a couple of other nice touches. But generally speaking, lots of attacks break down when they run through him. The weight of his passing's all over the place. On a lighter and more pleasant note with Rooney, not booed before the game.
No, true. Barely worth booing him, though. That's the thing.
Okay, that is definitely the cynical take on it, but I don't think it was that. I think it was a combination of he was given a standing ovation at Duncan Ferguson's testimonial, so I think definitely some bridges been rebuilt there. There was even a tiny smattering of applause in the Everton end when his name was read out. Could have just been a few United fans scattered in there or whatever. But it's important to say, I think, about that game that United were wonderful, but actually Everton were really poor, and it was a very strange atmosphere. Understandable, Howard Kendall had died that same day, and, he's the most successful manager in Everton's history, right? He's a huge figure at that club. So it was a big deal, and the home fans were absolutely silent throughout the game, essentially. The only noise was complaining about referees' decisions. It was, Old Trafford has a bad rap for home fans and the noise they make, but it's never, ever been that quiet. But Everton's performance was really flat too. Their passing was really shaky. They gave the ball a lot when they didn't need to, and I'm sure Martinez he described the performance afterwards as uncharacteristic, negative and reactive in the first half, and I think all those things were pretty accurate. They really were terrible.
They were, yeah. So a few points in there before we get off the Rooney thing. Let's just say that they're paving the way for a Rooney return home in the summer, hopefully. Maybe. Potentially. Martinez talked before the game about how important the Goodison atmosphere was and how they come out to Z cars and they really get behind you, and that can take you to places that you want to get to. And he talked a lot about how the Goodison crowd were really up for it against United, their biggest game, and they really weren't. And a lot of that, of course, has to do with the fact that United completely monopolised the game from the first minute, and it was only really for a short period after half-time that Everton really got into it at all. So that's some of it to do with that. Very, very reactive from Everton, I suppose. Good quote there. After last season's game, Martinez said that everything they wanted to do came off. And so it was almost the complete opposite. Everton won 3-0 that day. United looked pretty disinterested last April, didn't they? And just everything was different today. So a very disappointing result for Everton. They hadn't lost in 6 or 7 games before that. So, they had a pretty shaky start to the season. It had got better through time. They obviously had that fantastic win over Chelsea, and then they caught United at the wrong time, I guess, because United were everything that they weren't last April.
Absolutely. On United, I've written this morning about Jones and Smalling and how they should be our default centre-back partnership. They gave a pretty good audition as to why they should play together, and the Blint experiment, which I've enjoyed in large part, should be kind of confined to occasional games against weaker sides, particularly at home. But I thought they were really good together, and I thought Jones was actually really assured yesterday.
He was, yeah, and that's not always what you get from him, right?
No.
And managed to get himself not injured.
Although he was bleeding within half an hour.
Yeah, but bleeding, it's like, as long as there's not thigh or knee knack somewhere in there, we're all right. A bit of blood's fine. So yeah, good. As they were in that string of games at the back end of last season where United won 2, and it's got to be the right partnership. One of Jones or Rojo alongside Smalling is just a more natural central defensive partnership. They at least know where they are on the pitch, which is Blint's big problem. As assured as Blint has looked in some games, I will give you Arsenal and Southampton and Swansea as evidence that he just can't play that position. we shouldn't do it ever again, And if he wants to shift out to the left back where he had some of his best performances last season, then fine, that works too.
And we've discussed this ad nauseum, but I don't think it's that it should never be tried again, because against the right opposition, it's incredibly effective in terms of how the whole team uses the ball. But certainly against the bigger teams away, and centre back isn't a position that you want to mix up too often if you can help it. Of course, the problem is, you say Jones and Smalling would be the ideal first choice partnership out of the players we've got, but really, how often are they both going to be available?
Rojo in there as well has the same problem. He's injured a lot of the time. Shouts out for Rojo too. He had a very good game, didn't he, at left back? Sometimes I don't really like him there because he's not quite as dynamic, is he, as Luke Shaw? Well, nowhere near as dynamic. But he's all right going forward, and defensively he's really sound. Every time Lukaku moved out to the right side, and Lukaku was, I guess, Everton's brightest option for most of the game, even if he was pretty wasteful. He dealt with him. There was one great period where just after half-time, Everton were breaking, looked a bit dangerous, and Rojo kicked the hell out of Lukaku on the right-hand side, just flew into a tackle, got the ball, and just looked at Lukaku with a bit of disdain. That's what you like in him. He's a proper defender.
Yeah.
Just, not as good attacking as Luke Shaw, but there are a few that are.
Darmian much better defensively, although I still think something's got to be done about his crossing. But he was really good defensively, and that was fantastic to see. And it was fantastic to see Van Gaal backing Darmian after the shellacking he took against Arsenal. That was a really... as you said earlier, Van Gaal just got every decision right. It was right to drop Memphis, but it was also right to keep playing Darmian. And you wonder whether Blint and Memphis partly got dropped because, as Van Gaal's total human being principle that he was talking about, they've had a heck of a time in the last week, haven't they? But neither of them are in particularly good form, but nor was Darmian, and he was selected over Valencia, and it was a really good shout. Schweinsteiger, I thought, having not played very well against Arsenal, very much proving that the obituaries had been written too soon. Absolutely magnificent against Everton. Just such a leader in that midfield.
Yeah, well, a lot of talk before the game, actually, about how Schweinsteiger is now the boss off the pitch as well.
Right.
And all the players are now looking to him. Although Ander Herrera was very effusive in his praise of Wayne Rooney after the game. Yeah, big brown noser that he is. Anyway, Schweinsteiger was fantastic. I think I mentioned earlier in the game I accidentally said Carrick and Schneiderlin started the game. Of course, Schweinsteiger, who was fantastic and was substituted off for his job share partner after sort of 70 minutes or so. But yeah, just total leader, in control of that midfield. Clearly the boss, had so much class into the United side. Bargain of the season, undoubtedly.
Yeah, absolutely. When Herrera scored, Martial was down, and everyone ran off with Herrera to celebrate, except Schweinsteiger, who stayed to make sure Marcel was all right. It's like, yeah, he's a good lad. He really is a good lad. Herrera does a lot of leadership too. He talks a lot during games. He's constantly talking to the players around him and pointing. It's kind of like this thing about Herrera being completely football obsessed. And you can see that definitely he's going to end up as a manager one day, because he's always thinking about the game. And it was notable when Lingard came on for Mata at half-time. Herrera just immediately ran up to him, put his arm around him, started pointing and saying, right, this is what I'm going to do, that's what I'm going to do, get ready for this, that and the other.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Funny thing, Martial, when he was absolutely clattered by Coleman, Coleman got booked. That was the most effective thing that Coleman did in the entire game. And yeah, very big as Schweinsteiger to go up to him. And then on Herrera, totally right. I mean, Lingard came on, Herrera was first man to him and told him where to go and play. And I presume that he'd had instructions of where to and what to do from Van Gaal anyway. But yeah, Herrera knew exactly what to do. Funny thing is that Lingard came on after half time for Mata, and that was tactical. Not that Mata was having a bad game, but I guess Van Gaal wanted a bit more energy, more drive going forward and more running going back, he said, which is what Lingard gave. And then after the hour or so, Rooney drifted out to the right as well, and had Lingard come in and had a couple of chances, didn't he? Not that he took...
No, but he delivered a couple of really good crosses, Lingard did, and looked like a winger playing out there. He's so tiny, though. He's just so much... Like, he's got these little tiny twiggy legs. compared to the rest of them. And he's not that young, but he does kind of still look like a kid when he's out there. But he did well, and he definitely looks ready to be included in the first team picture. And, you know, it's that thing of everyone's a bit concerned about what's happening with people that have come through the youth setup, and it's nice to see Lingard involved, isn't it, from that perspective?
Yeah, that record still stands. Pereira, Lingard and Johnston on the bench. Did Pereira count? I did ask Mr. Mujak on Twitter whether it counts if they've been bought in. He said, as long as they've played for the academy, it counts. Bending the rules there, but
yeah. Well, it does make sense, doesn't it? It's that is the rule, isn't it? That's the record, is someone that's been through the United academy system. Don't have to be there since they were 8 or anything to count. Although it's nice when they have been in it, anyway.
So that was Everton. Very fine all-round from United, and a great comeback after the Arsenal result. Real bounce-back ability, and United now second in the table, and in touch with City, who are looking pretty ominous at the moment.
Yeah, I think in touch with City in a point sense rather than a going to compete for the league sense. It was great that United bounced back so thoroughly from that Arsenal defeat, but that Arsenal defeat definitely kind of shone a spotlight on some of the flaws in the squad, and maybe Van Gaal's smart enough and adaptable enough that he won't make those same mistakes again, and that will be enough. But I think some of the mistakes were born of the kind of structural lack of depth in the squad and all those kind of things, which are just going to make us slightly too inconsistent to really compete.
Well, I think you're right, but look at the midfield options, right? You know, Schneidlin, Schweinsteiger, Carrick, Herrera, Mata. If you can't find some balance with all of that talent, then there's something wrong, right? There's something desperately wrong. And not to keep harking on, but the thing that's really hamstringing United is Rooney. Is his performances in any position just takes one man out of the team, basically. And if United can just find a way of getting the best out of Rooney, it's unlikely to happen, in my opinion, or finding another shape that doesn't mean that Herrera's sat on the bench, then we'll go a long way this season. The trouble is, and we've got 2 really tough games coming up away at CSKA Moscow and Manchester City, and you just think, well, what's he going to do there? He's going to take United's most potent attacker and stick him on the left wing, it seems, and Rooney's going to be up front, and he's going to add, provide no kind of focal point for the team, or he's going to bring Memphis or Young back into the side. I guess Young's injured at the moment. Memphis back into the side, and Herrera's going to drop to the bench.
Yeah,
United's best player at the weekend.
Although Van Gaal did essentially say in his post-match that Herrera, when he's playing like that, it's kind of difficult to drop him. Then he grinned and said, of course I can do it. But that was like a power play rather than a thing he says he's going to play him. So I'd be absolutely shocked if Herrera's fit and available for selection and doesn't play against both Moscow and City, unless somehow he's terrible in Moscow. I'm pretty sure this is him in the side.
Right. So what is going to happen is in Moscow, Rooney's going to be leading the line like 30 yards away from any United player. And the ball will bounce off his shins every time we ask anyone to hold it up, It's going to be a major weakness going away. Major weakness. Yeah,
no disagreement there. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're not going to win the league, probably. But it's absolutely huge that we can come back from that defeat against Arsenal with a thumping win at Goodison. First for 4 seasons there, I think. We'd lost 3 in a row at Goodison in the league. So it's a really, really, really big result. And in terms of the kind of the aim of this season, which is lowering the points gap on whoever wins, narrowing the points gap on whoever wins the league, that was a very good example of us being able to do that. So we're going to do some previews coming up. But before that, we have got a bit of Rantcast business to take care of, because in the dim and distant mists of time when there was last one of these, we had an interview with Jamie Jackson about his book, A Season in the Red. We did a contest where you could win that book, and someone has done that. So in second place in this competition, where you had to answer the question, why would you be a better manager than Moyes and Van Gaal? Mark_Grumpy Lion said he'd be a better manager than Van Gaal because he would not need to be reminded about thanking the violin lady. It was the saxophone lady. That you cost yourself the win there, but nipping in with the win with a reference to one of my favourite stupid internet memes of all time. At Martin Forsland says, I would be a better manager than Moyes since I'm not a cupboard. All right, Martin, if you could DM me with your address, then I will arrange to get a book sent out to you. And congratulations and thanks once again to Jamie Jackson for coming on the show.
Very good, very good. So, on to midweek and the Champions League game away at CSKA Moscow. It's going to be a tough one.
Is it? I assume that's true. I haven't done my research yet, Ed.
Oh,
I'm really sorry.
Well, here, let me help you out.
Okay.
Let me help you out. They're Russian.
Yeah.
And they come from Moscow.
Yeah.
And they haven't lost in 6 games since the outing against Wolfsburg, where they lost in the previous round before last. And
the last time I looked it up, they were absolutely flying in the league. Is that still the case?
They are absolutely flying in the league.
Right.
They won at the weekend, and a few games ago they scored 6 in a 6-4 victory away from home. They've got some fine players. So Seydou Doumbia, who's on loan from Roma, he's banging them in at the moment and creating a lot of goals. Alan Zagoyev is still their midfield creator. And of course, they've got Igor Akinfeev, who's their captain at between 6. Very fine goalkeeper. And for Red Watchers, Zoran Tosic is still there.
Yeah,
if you remember,
he's
him.
like an important player there as well, isn't he? He's a big part of their side. Ahmed Musa had a very good World Cup and scoring freely for CSKA. Do you remember when Akinfeev was going to be our next keeper, Ed?
Yeah. Apparently, he'll never leave CSKA Moscow. I mean, he's been linked with moves abroad for some time. He was in that team when he was like 12 or something, or not far off anyway. So, he was one of the many players linked with United on Edwin van der Sar's retirement.
He was absolutely brilliant against us once. I remember that.
Totally, yeah. If you remember, sort of 5-6 years ago, there was a 3-all at Old Trafford in the group stages. So. And we went to the Luzhniki. A few Reds will have fond memories of the Luzhniki. About a year after that, win over Chelsea in the Champions League final and beat CSKA Moscow at their place. So, yeah, played them twice, 1 draw, 1 victory.
They don't play at the Luzhniki Stadium, though.
They did when we played them.
Did they? They don't anymore. They play somewhere else. They play at the Arena Khimki.
Yes, which will be called the Arena Moscow for the 2018 World Cup in true FIFA fashion.
Right.
Not bent at all, FIFA. Just wanted to add that.
They are, though, aren't they? Isn't that definitive? Aren't we allowed to just say that now?
Yeah, I think we are, yeah. We're getting off track here, but is there a FIFA vice president who is not named David Hill, who hasn't taken a bribe? And David, have you taken a bribe?
I've never taken a bribe. Have you ever taken a bribe, Ed?
Sadly, no one's ever offered me a bribe.
No, me neither.
So I have not. My morals have not been challenged.
Yeah, allegations about the 2006 World Cup, Platini getting suspended. It's all kicked off, hasn't it? I mean, it's all sort of continuing to kick off.
Those allegations about the 2006 World Cup are not new, right?
Right,
there was a report years ago into England only getting 1 vote in the 2006 World Cup bidding process, and it's under parliamentary privilege. It was alleged that contracts for weapons and all sorts have been given to many countries from the Germans, and it's just politics, right? It's politics. So they're trading votes for weapons contracts. Awesome.
It's just so sad that the World Cup should be such a beautiful and pure thing, but it isn't. Anyway, Euro 2016 coming up. The international breaks happened while we were away, and United managed to hold on to most of their key players during that in terms of injuries and stuff, and Martial tearing it up for France, England strolling into the Euros, and a matter of talking of Rankcast business, Ed, I believe I've won a bet.
Have you?
Yeah, because on an episode of the Rankcast at some point in the past, you were extremely confident that Wales would not qualify for Euro 2016, but they've made it.
They have, yeah. My overconfidence was based on the old qualifying regime where actually only decent sides made it to the Euros, whereas now pretty much everyone in Europe qualifies for the Euros. I mean, there's how many countries in Europe? Like 28, and 24 of them qualify.
That's really bad news for Danny Blint, isn't it, if that's the case?
Yeah, really bad news. No, so quite a few of the smaller nations have qualified, if that's the right way of putting it. Wales, Iceland, Northern Ireland. Republic could yet, they'll be in the playoffs. They could yet qualify. So it should be an interesting tournament, but we might get a few skewed results, I suppose, because some of the smaller nations, it's an expanded tournament. It's going to have a really weird format as well. But maybe that'll be a bit more interesting, because a few of the Euros in recent times have not been that great.
I thought we generally assume that the Euros are better because there's a higher standard of football. I thought that was generally why people were kind of against the expansion of including a bunch of new other teams in it.
Yeah, I don't remember too many of the recent ones being... high quality football, yeah, it's like an extension of the Champions League, isn't it? But not being super exciting.
Okay. I think this one's going to be good. Northern Ireland, a mention from a United perspective, 4 United Academy products in the side there. Craig Cathcart, Paddy McNair, who did pick up a nasty injury, sadly, and also 2 other people whose name escaped me right at this very minute. But yeah, it was nice to. There was a picture of them all lined up together. So the United Academy might not be producing millions of players for United, but we are propping up the home nations when it comes to qualifying for the European Championships.
Yeah, apparently Paddy McNair got a Phil Jones-esque injury, rupturing a liver.
Yeah,
how does that happen? Yeah, he spent 3 days in hospital, but hopefully not too long for the recovery there.
Yeah, I think it's an impact injury, isn't it? Because it's a broken rib and a ruptured liver, so it's just a nasty one. The word ruptured is a word I hate to hear in the context of the human body. It's like you just definitely don't want anything to rupture.
Tendons, knees, livers.
Yeah. None of it's
spleens.
Good. Yeah. Also, anything internal that's like, oh God, no.
Intestines.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, in lighter news,
I tell you what, Seamus Coleman ruptured his arsehole against Anthony Martial.
I think the CSKA game is going to be incredibly tough. A draw would be a great result because they are a good team in really good form, and it's a long way away. And that is kind of a big deal when it comes to travel. You'd expect us to beat them at home, but I think it would be a huge result if we could pull off a win there.
Huge result, yeah. Yeah, totally. CSKA are not going to win the Champions League, but they are a fine team, in fine form. They've got an excellent set of results this season. They've got some good players back in the home crowd. United are going to fly a long way and then have to fly a long way back as well. So after what should have been a tough game at Everton, so I guess it's that's the bonus there, isn't it? And certainly a bonus for United playing on Saturday rather than Sunday. So yeah, tough one. A draw is it's very important in the context of the group, given that United lost the opening game. But it would be a very good result anyway in any context.
Yeah, absolutely. So just doing a bit of very quick research, it looks like they might be somewhat vulnerable to giving up a lot of chances, which if Martial's in form could be dangerous for them. But they definitely just score a ton of goals, don't they? And that's going to be a big factor. De Gea will be busy. We didn't even mention De Gea's save, his foot kung fu save against Lukaku, and his kind of punchy save from Barkley's whipped shot from out wide. Such an asset to have him back there, isn't it?
There's barely any point talking about De Gea. He's excellent every week. Although he did flap a couple. Wow. He had Lukaku's elbow in his face while he was doing said flapping. But he's excellent every week. It's much like we don't really need to talk about how bad Rooney is. We no longer need to talk about how good Dave is.
All right, so before we preview the derby, should we do some Twitter questions?
Let's do it.
All right. This one's just weird. At Rich Chilver, is Ander Herrera the new Park Ji-sung? I don't understand that. He does run a lot, but...
He runs a lot, and he's an excellent defensive forward, I think is what this guy's talking about.
Oh, okay.
So he makes good tackles from advanced positions. So.
But, I mean, Park Ji-sung was never a kind of creative maestro, was he?
I will not have you talking ill of Park Ji-sung. No, he wasn't.
Do you want to just, dig into the Rantcast archives for when he still played for us to find plenty of examples of you talking ill of Park Ji-sung, Ed?
Don't know what you're talking about, mate. Let's move on.
I don't understand this one either. At Nightwink 99, LVG got out of his seat yesterday. What will it take for Giggsy to do the same? Giggsy spends ages on the touchline, especially at Old Trafford. He's just forever standing there in his little technical box. But yeah,
he's when he was a player, Giggsy, the expression on his face that I remember most is one of kind of confusion after he'd dribbled past 6 players and then shanked across into the stand. Yeah, the expression on his face while a coach is one of dismissive anger. You know, he's looking at players going, "I've done better than that."
It's true though, isn't it? Most of the time. Van Gaal absolutely fuming at the referee, just going ballistic on the fourth official for about 30 seconds and then stopping and putting his arm around his shoulder and smiling. Just he couldn't be more Dutch if he tried. At Torgia says, the Rugby World Cup is on, as we know. Both of us are pretty much ignoring that, but it is a thing. Of the Manchester United players, who would be the best rugby player and who would die first in a rugby match? I think Jesse Lingard might be the one who dies first in a rugby match.
Oh God, that wouldn't be fair. You can imagine Rooney at prop, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of everyone in the United side, if I wanted someone to play rugby, I think I'd either go with Bastian Schweinsteiger or Wayne Rooney, because they're both.
Rooney's got the face for it, definitely.
At EGS76 says, was Memphis and Blind sat on the bench yesterday a reaction to the Arsenal defeat, or were they rested ahead of midweek against Moscow?
Or the Dutch thing that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So the fact that they'd taken a good hammering in midweek and then knocked out the Euros.
Yeah, I think it's the total human being principle. I definitely don't think it was them being rested ahead of Moscow, though. I don't think that it was about squad freshness. I think he was definitely trying to really, 15 meetings in the week, trying to come up with the best approach to this game to bounce back from Arsenal. At Tomzor says, at this point, have Chris Smalling's great performances become the rule rather than the exception?
Yeah. Let's. I think we can stop talking about Smalling becoming a really good player and pointing to his past failings and just say he's just a really good player.
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely seems to be the case. It's been a long stretch. And actually, talking of injuries, Chris Smalling has never played 2,000 minutes in a league season, but he's played an astronomical amount of the last. I can't remember the exact number, but he's played 3,000 of the last 3,200 possible minutes of football for United or something, and basically ever since he came back from suspension after that City red card, he's been superb. At Front Row United says, is Nick Powell's lack of progress his fault, or in part an indicator that the idea that United is the best team for supporting young talent is diminishing?
I don't think you can extrapolate from Nick Powell to a commentary on the club. You can look at the last 10 years and say not enough players have come through from the academy into the first team over the last 10 years, maybe the last 15 years. And that would be a fair commentary. He's got nothing to do with Nick Powell. I mean, Nick Powell's just not good enough to make it at Premier League level. He had a shot at Leicester last season, barely played. So he would do well to drop down a division, I think, and restart his career.
Yeah, there's stories doing around that he's kind of disenchanted with football, and there was the thing that happened when he was on loan at Wigan and getting arrested for drink driving and stuff that makes you think there's perhaps something going on behind the scenes for Powell in terms of his own attitude. And much like the Di Maria situation with Van Gaal last season, there's a bit of 6 of one, half a dozen the other in there, isn't there? So. At Eddie Rose 13 says, is Smalling the next United captain?
No idea. Could be, I suppose. He's become a leader on the pitch, hasn't he? I'm not really sure what he's like off the pitch, apart from silly fancy dress costumes. He's now confident. He's a real leader. He's, at least in terms of his playing style, he's taking control of that back four. So everything on the pitch is top top quality at the moment. He's well spoken in media interviews, so maybe he could be. Maybe
I think there's a definite chance that could be the case. At Hannah May J says, as a supporter of another club who's been invited to attend a United game on the Stretford end, what can I do to blend in? So first of all, just to clarify for the listeners, this is not the supporter of the team that United will be playing in that game. It's the supporter of a different club altogether. I think to blend in on the Stretford end, what you have to make it abundantly clear that you do not care for Manchester City or Liverpool. And as long as you do that, I think you'll be welcomed with open arms.
Yeah, well, make a trip down to the Bishop's Place a couple of hours before the game, learn all the songs, and then you're good.
Yeah, that totally works. There are a lot of songs. That is the one thing that you can say for United's fans. There's a very big repertoire of songs. So if you learn the calypso, I'd say actually that's got to be one of the key ways to fit in. If you know all the words to the calypso and you can deliver it at 180 beats a minute or whatever, you'll be all right.
Very good.
All right. So I guess that brings us to. Talking of the Stretford end, they will be in superb voice, no doubt, as we prepare for the arrival on Sunday next week, a week today as we record this, of Manchester City, absolutely flying at the moment. A huge test for Van Gaal and his boys.
Yeah, really. 5 against Bournemouth, 6 against Newcastle, and 1 at Borussia Mönchengladbach before that. In fine form. Weird City, though, because they had that kind of weird blip where they got spanked at Spurs and lost at home to West Ham. So some inconsistency this season, but flying at the moment. Question marks over David Silva's fitness, of course, key player. Will he be back for the derby? Is Aguero fit for the derby? There's 2 really key players there, but it's just clicking for them at the moment up front. Kevin De Bruyne has made a big difference. Raheem Sterling seems to have put it all together as a package in a way that he didn't very often do at Liverpool. So in an attacking sense, they're pretty frightening at the moment. Yeah,
I mean, Aguero and Silva being out would be huge, but with De Bruyne and Sterling, as you say, plenty of options. I think, I don't want to kind of curse this or whatever, but you'd fancy Jones and Smalling against Wilfred Boney a lot more than Bournemouth's back four. And you'd fancy them against Boney a lot more than you'd fancy them against Aguero, I guess.
Yeah, well, the thing with Boney is, he's got all the attributes of a top striker. He's bags and bags of pace. He's a very good finisher, and he's strong in the air, and he's obviously physically very able. His movement's not as good as Aguero's, and Aguero's movement is, if not the best of any striker on the planet, then he's got to be close to it. And that's why he gets in the right positions all the time. And he's obviously a fantastic finisher. So, I think if anything does for Smalling and Jones, it's their positional sense on occasion. And Aguero would certainly test that more than Boney. So, yeah, let's hope so. Anyway, more straightforward challenge, I think, if you can call it that. But the movement of Sterling and De Bruyne is awesome too. They're able to switch wings at will. They both create and both score. De Bruyne's numbers are already very good this season. So, 4 starts, 1 substitute appearance, and he's created or scored or had a hand in 6 goals, right? So, and that's what he did at Wolfsburg. He just puts up fantastic numbers. And bags of pace there. It's certainly going to test United in a defensive sense.
It's going to be really interesting how City approach this game and where they're at mentally, because their season has been a little bit rollercoastery already. They looked like they'd won the league by the 3rd week of the season, basically, and then sort of briefly it looked like, actually maybe they will not be impervious as they march towards inevitable glory. But then it's all clicked again in spite of a bunch of injuries. So that's the bit that's kind of worrying about what's going to go on in this game. Last season, of course, we really blitzed them. I mean, they started really strongly, scored that early goal, and then United kind of got a fairly lucky goal, and then were just by far the best team for the rest of that game. It's going to be a real surprise if United are by far the best team in this game, I'd say. How do you rate the midfield matchups?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to guess that City will play something very similar to the way they played against Bournemouth. That appears to be the two, doesn't it? Fernandinho and Torre. And Sterling played a little bit behind Boney as a kind of number 10. He could do that, or he could go wide, depending on whether Nasri or Navas plays. Navas has been playing most of those. But yeah, Torre and Fernandinho versus, I guess, Schneiderlin and Schweinsteiger is going to be a really, really good test, isn't it? You know, for once, you wouldn't definitely say that Torre and whatever partner is definitely going to have the upper hand. You know, I think it's going to be a good test, and they're not the kind of nippy buzzy little imps buzzing around them that was Arsenal. Either. So a bit more of a standard test. And I assume that Van Gaal will not make the same mistake again, and he's not going to play Carrick and Schweinsteiger in there. Although he could do and get away with it if Herrera's there as well against City, just because of the nature of the players they're going to be matched up against.
Yeah, and you'd think that from an attacking perspective, United are going to definitely find some joy in that side. Big games at home. That these are good for Juan Mata, who has gone off the boil since his remarkable September performances. Been pretty average in his last couple of games, but that's no indicator that he will be average again, because he is entirely, like, his whole United career is basically him pulling out amazing moments amidst. He doesn't dominate game after game, does he? But he's a player for a big moment sometimes. So that's a huge thing. Martial, massive again, and you wonder whether, I mean, this will never happen, but just would love to see a front three of Memphis, Martial and Mata if Memphis can find some form.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen because Rooney will definitely play. I mean, Mata and Martial could also play, but I don't think Memphis and Herrera will both play.
No. So this brings us to a kind of interesting general question of, like, when is Memphis going to get back in the team?
When he starts performing, I guess. You know, he's going to have to indicate to Van Gaal that he's played 13 out of the last 14 games, Memphis. So
yeah, that's the first time he was dropped, isn't it?
Yeah. So he's going to have to make some indication to Van Gaal that he's ready to get in the side again. You know, it's difficult with Martial being so good to see him coming in on the left if Rooney playing up front is what's going to happen now. But then again, you know, we had this debate at the beginning of the season that Rooney would be playing up front and he was really bad, and Martial came along and Rooney had to play at 10. So, and that's the thing, you know. So if Van Gaal decides he wants to bring Memphis back into the side, and he clearly has a lot of faith in him, clearly. And he may have been dropped because of performances which haven't been great, or because of what happened with the Dutch team. If he wants to bring him back into the side, the only logical thing is that Herrera is dropped and Martial plays at 9 and Rooney plays at 10.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think anyone wants to see that happening. For the time being, except maybe Memphis.
No. Some interesting choices at the back, though, the converse to that, for City, right? So Otamendi and Mangala played against Bournemouth, and Kompany's on the bench, and Kompany's not had a great sort of 12 months, really, has he? But he's their captain, and he has had some big moments against United in the past.
He has, but he was pretty bad, if I remember rightly, in the derby at Old Trafford last season. And he started the season really strongly, but clearly dipped again if he's been left on the bench, unless somehow he's being saved for bigger games ahead.
No, he was on the bench against, or maybe he didn't even make the bench against Newcastle. So, you know, he's had injury problems as well with Kompany.
Yeah.
He's not the force of old at the moment.
No, and you know, Otamendi, a player a lot of United fans wanted at United, including me, I have to say, not totally taken like a duck to water the Premier League yet, but there's a long way to go for that one. And Mangala is growing into the job at City. You know, arrived at huge expense and didn't do too well last season. So, but he does seem to be improving this season.
Huge expense to a very large number of weird third parties.
Yes, quite. But yeah, so they're definitely pretty good, and their fullback situation is interesting. Koلاrov's been playing really well this season, but is he injured?
Yeah, he was, and Sagna played at left back, which would be interesting because Mata cutting inside on his left foot versus Sagna on his right foot would be a weird inverse right wing left back type situation.
It would, and that's
hipsters all over the world will love it.
It's kind of doesn't really favour Mata though, does it? That one. It's kind of you kind of want a right-footed full left back against Mata, I guess. But anyway, it's occasionally like Van Gaal's a little bit obsessed with which foot players prefer. So like he might definitely, you can just see him like switching it up and playing Mata somewhere else and playing somebody right-footed out there to take advantage of that. But anyway, we'll see. What's your kind of current optimism, pessimism scale for that game in particular?
Now, you're normally the one who sits on the fence with these, so it's somewhere in the middle, basically. But only because, I find it hard to tell you which United side is going to turn up next week. And I also find it very hard to work out where Van Gaal is going to have his little mini stroke and do something weird. Yeah. So something weird could definitely happen in that game. He could suddenly decide that Dave is going to play up front.
It could happen.
No, he won't do that. Well, he could do. There'll be some logic somewhere of some bizarre decision, and that could affect the game. But, United at home, the better performances under Van Gaal have definitely been at home. They've been, in fact, it's pretty rare that United have performed as well as they did at Everton away from home under Van Gaal. Maybe even the best performance away from home under Van Gaal. So
yeah, that and Anfield last season. Yeah, that's got to be it.
So the better ones have come at home. The record against the bigger sides is good, and so that all points to United putting in a strong performance.
Yeah. Okay. So it's that time in the show where we predict what happens in the 2 games to come.
What did we predict last time out?
I think I predicted a loss against Arsenal. That's what I remember, but we didn't predict the Everton game because we were supposed to do at least like 7 podcasts in between then and now. I think that we'll get a draw in Moscow. I think a scoring draw, 2-2. There you go, 2-2 in Moscow, and I think we'll nick it. I think we'll nick the derby, 2-1. There you go.
Bold. I'm going to say 1-1 in Moscow. It just feels like a 1-1 type game, doesn't it?
Okay. No, it feels like a 2-2 type game.
Just so wrong. You're so wrong.
It's got 1-1 written all over it.
1-1 written all over it, that game. And I can't see City not scoring at Old Trafford. So I'm going to say 4-3 to United. Michael Owen to win it in the last minute.
It did. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Rantcast. All being well, we'll be back next week as normal to look back on the derby and the Moscow game and look forward to whatever on earth it is that's coming up after that. Middlesbrough and Palace, I think. If you want to get us in the meantime, you know where to find us. And we really appreciate all your support. And to everyone that asked where the podcast was in the week in between, it's always nice to be missed. And we will see you next week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.